All right, so you've got your schedules, right? We are going to move on. I'm going to come back and talk more about the strategic plan, but we want to talk about classroom management. So we have our three schools represented. So you guys come up here if you would, because we're recording this. We're going to pass this on to our other guest teachers that could be here. But wow, what a good turnout. Thanks for being here this morning. So one of the areas that we're continuing to work hard on is that socio-emotional learning and really helping our kids be more emotionally connected, more that self-discipline, that self-control, being responsibly independent individuals. So we're working hard on that across all three buildings. So we'd like to start with, is there anybody in a hurry to move through this? Any of the schools that we'd have to get back to your?
No.
Okay, so John, do you want to come up here because we're videotaping this and you can kind of tell what's happening? So really what we're uncovering, and please ask questions because you asked questions last year, your voices were heard. For those of you that were here, we're really trying to do a better job of supporting you when you're in the buildings and making sure that you have contacts for when you need help. So John's going to tell you a little bit about what's going on.
And the context for help starts really as soon as you say, yes, I need to do that. We want to create a culture that we are serving you because we know in terms of if you're served well, you're serving the kids well. So what we want to do is take care of you. One of the things that these buildings have is a guest teacher binder. And what we do with that then is this is just the nuts and bolts and things that like, okay, how does this work? We also count on our teachers obviously to write those good sub-plan notes that you need to make sure that your day goes well. We want to make sure that you are taken care of. So know that we have this. I'm not going to take the time to go through this, but when you come into our building, know that these are available. The secretary will give you this, the key, your time card, and everything else to make sure that your day is an awesome day. We also know that occasionally, well, there things happen that you don't anticipate. That's okay. These are just challenges. We're working with people. People are messy. It's up to us how we're going to respond to it. So I guess know this. Something happens and we didn't anticipate, don't take it personal. Don't feel bad about something that happens. We'll learn from it and we'll move on and it'll be all right. So just let me reassure you with that too. So when you do have a situation, what we do is a challenging situation comes up, and I'm speaking on behalf of Hunky right now. A situation comes up where the child is, all right, learning has come to a screeching halt because of this student's behavior, whatever happened. Sometimes that happens because of whatever that kid has, his social emotional needs are at a point right now, he's not getting something met and he's acting out in this way. We want to keep the learning going and we have a system in place to make sure that happens. In our classrooms we have radios and all you have to do is pick it up and say, in this case Mr. Winters, and we'll remind you of this, Mr. Winters comes in, he meets with that child, maybe he keeps the child there, maybe he needs to take the child out. We trust him to figure out what that is. That's, Mr. Winters comes for when there are majors. You decide if it's a major. I'm not here to tell you this is not a major or this is a major. You decide what that is and your ability to discern that. You're an adult, I trust you will have that happen. I know that's also part of the classroom management part of this. We have kids who are participating in interventions. That's something that they plan. We could have somebody like Miss Mikey showing up to help a kid just kind of take a break, refocus, and get what they need so they can get on to the business of learning. But so in a nutshell, really, if there's a situation where a kid is behaving in a way that's really causing learning to stop, we need to fix that. And you're not left at your own devices to do that. Call on the radio, we'll come down and help you and get things straightened out and get it moving in the right direction. Questions about anything related to how we handle things at Hunky?
No, but I have a thought.
Yes, Julie.
I know most of the teachers, when you're subbing for them, they'll put in parentheses the ones that are extra, they need the extra hand. But like this summer when we had that problem, it would have been nice to know ahead that they have a hard time on Mondays. So if I would have known that, it would have been easier to handle the situation. Because every Monday is going to be like that. So if they'd be able to put that in the notes, then you'd be more able to function in that situation instead of going, what do I do? You know?
Try to be proactive as much as possible.
Right, but knowing that this child has a hard time getting back in the swing of things on Monday, and knowing by Tuesday if they're fine, and it's just Monday because they're going back to a different schedule, it would be really helpful for us.
Thanks, I documented that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Other questions, comments? Dawn?
What areas is, well, God forbid, the active shooter type situation? I've looked in the books and stuff, but I don't feel really comfortable with what we as subs would do in that situation.
Good question. So on our schedule right now, towards the end of this, Josh Kohler, our police liaison officer, is going to talk to that. So I'm going to let him handle all of that response right now. So I'm going to wait for that.
Thank you.
But we'll cover that. And remember, we're trying to change from subs to,
Yes,
Teachers.
I'm correcting you nicely. I just can't believe.
Smile when you say
Yes,
that.
did I not have a smile?
You did
Yeah,
smile.
Slingo. But it's like 7 years I've been really trying to change us. When we talk about trying to change our practices, it's crazy. But thanks for adding and laughing. Let's see if we can catch somebody else and have fun with them. So, Mr. Sprain, we thank you.
Denise?
Oh, Denise.
I know, you had said that sometimes, kids are regular pickups with Miss Mikey and
Sure.
Rod and stuff. But I know as a guest teacher, sometimes, they get caught up in other ways and then they don't come and pick up whoever they're supposed to come and get. To be notified of that, because then sometimes it sets that child off. We're waiting for Miss Mikey, we're waiting, and she's not coming, and I had, I've contacted and I know nobody's gotten back to me, and I'm wondering, so you just,
Well-
keep telling the kid, well, she must be caught up, she'll be here, and,
I got it documented.
I don't know what that whole procedure, I guess, is for that.
Yeah, just as a matter of reference right now, so you know this, typically what ends up happening, because believe it or not, once in a while, we will have a situation where we need Rod here and Rod here. And then Rod will say, hey, John, you know what, can you just, and then we just pass it down the line till we get that person. And sometimes things do come up, and we understand that, but we have backups for those individuals in place. So.
But if Miss Mikey isn't going to show up, is there a way to communicate?
Right,
That's what
right.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
that's a regular, like a weekly thing that she picks up that child for something or other, and that, that child's waiting for that moment and it doesn't happen.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
So that's listed for the high school as to who's gonna pick up who and who they are and all this?
That's
kind of
more or
stuff?
less at the elementary school where we're giving kids scheduled breaks. We know at 10 o'clock every day that Terry has a hard time. So somebody's gonna come and get me, take me on a walk, and really try to redirect me, and then come back and I'm good to go. So that's mainly at the elementary school. There's some of that at the middle school too.
Not at the high school,
No.
none.
Yes.
Do you guys do responsive classroom or any?
Yeah, but really, that's a theme throughout our district right now, and with that too, responsive classroom practices, and we also spend time for those who, conscious discipline, and that's really thinking about, without going into a lot of detail, as opposed to control, which we want to do as adults, but really being conscious and how we lead students to think about their behavior and get to the point of practicing self-regulation, as opposed to me trying to control you, getting kids to think and lead them. So that's part of that.
So Mr. Thomas, you're up. Would you go to the front?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, I'm John Thomas, the associate principal at the middle school. A lot of familiar faces, a few new ones. With the middle school, one of the things I heard from last year was, we can use some support on some of these days. So last year, the principal and myself tried to make a conscious effort every time there was guest teachers in the building to stop in, what do you need from us, check back in a couple times during the day. And I know from feedback that I've got, which always helps from guest teachers in the past, is sometimes I will never come back to that class. Okay, why? What happened there and how can we help you? And it was, with this group, it just was not working. Awesome, that's how I can do it, because I have 2 behavior interventionists myself that we want to be there. So when we had guest teachers, one of the things I tried doing was, hey, I'm going to be in there. I'm going to be in art class. I'm going to be in this one. I'm going to be here. And if I have to be there, my presence, and that helps you, great, that's exactly what I want. But I need that kind of feedback. Maybe it's, I'm never coming back unless you change this or help me there. But that way, but feedback helps me to change it. We also have guest teacher binders that we have prepared for every guest teacher. It does have, like the Alice, step-by-step in there, also Cole will talk on that. Please call me. The numbers are right in there. I'm pretty quick around that building. I can get there in a hurry. But if it's something that you need assistance on, something major, feel free to call me. If it's a classroom management one and you just need some assistance, some eyes on where you can repair it with the student, great, that's what we're getting towards. One of the other things we're moving towards in the middle school is restorative justice practices. If it's broken, it needs to be fixed. If the victim caused some harm to the other person, or the offender caused harm to the victim, it needs to be repaired. And sometimes that might be, we're gonna come together, we're gonna figure this out. Now, I don't want you to think that just because we do restorative practices that there's no punitive. It's a step, there can still be punitive ones that come out of it, but we need it repaired if something was broken. So I'm available, call me, I wear my walkie everywhere.
I appreciated it last year.
Well, good, thank you. Because
It really helped a lot.
because of everything that us working together, not to brag, but we were only at 51% of our behavior referrals last year versus the previous year. So 1,300 versus like 650. So we are moving into.
So we're gonna do better this year.
We're gonna be better, yeah. I want another 50% this year.
You know, one of the things that I'd like to add to both John's presentation is we are really working hard. Many of you are in classrooms where we're doing the morning meeting, and you heard Tara talk about building relationships. I mean, we come in oftentimes, and certainly we, including me, when I come into a classroom, I haven't built relationships. I don't have that power that a regular teacher does that sees that student on a regular basis. I don't have. People look at me as superintendent, well, everybody should just listen to me. Well, if I haven't built a relationship with you or the kids, I can come into a classroom and be disrespected, right? But I don't look at it as, I don't take it personally because I know I haven't built those deposits into their bank. So, but just know that we're really trying hard on the front end. For you to be in a morning meeting and participate, what are you doing? You're building relationships with those kids. So the more we see you in our schools, the more chances you have to build those relationships, and the greater the chance that you're building and you're stockpiling some deposits so that you can make a withdrawal here and there, and they're gonna respond when you grab that.
I do have a comment. Years and years ago, when I substituted, you'd go through the day and maybe the fourth hour would have difficult kids. And, if you come in and all of a sudden you're going 3 hours and it's, oh, this is really nice, I really enjoy it. And the fourth hour, you're pasted up against the wall. It would be nice that if the teachers would say, fourth hour is a little more challenging in this classroom, and that somebody could drift by during fourth
good.
hour. Just a thought.
So identify
Yeah,
those hours.
just
Yeah.
a thought, because sometimes it's like, even when I taught full-time, it was like, there was always that 1 hour that seemed to be a little more challenging.
And that kind of feedback to myself is helpful as well. I know some of the classes where there could be issues, but if you're like, fourth hour this time was really tough.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that,
Then
and
next
that
time I
might,
get
and
you
that
back-
might deter somebody from coming back because they know they have to face that fourth hour.
Right, which is
And
what
they don't wanna do it.
I don't want to deter you, I want to support you, and I want you back, and then I want to help with that hour. So
Yeah,
that kind
so
of
just
feedback is
a
great.
thought,
Thank
even
you.
if just somebody could just drift by and be another face and they go, oh, somebody is kind of looking at this.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Are there any?
That was very helpful last year.
Thank you.
I had a lot of feedback around the topic of principals stopping by when guest teachers are there. All right, Mr. Johnson's up.
And I don't know,
Thank you.
did you mention the red binders? There are people.
Yeah, you bring that up with you.
Okay.
And then
every
I
room
also
should
have a copy of yours
Every
here.
room in the district should have one of these red binders right up in the front. So those are the crisis action plans in there. They're valuable to look through, and so certainly, I guess I could go over here, but certainly as you're working through the day, just getting a chance to read through those binders. They have a lot of that information about what to do, fire drills, what to do, severe weather, what to do. Alice is covered in there, what to do if there's an active shooter, or if we go into a lockdown situation. I will say that at the high school, and at the middle school, I think as well, the lockdowns, we do use lockdowns for far more than, as far as an active shooter type situation. We go into lockdowns anytime that there's a situation where we want to control the amount of people in the hallway. We'll go into a lockdown as well when we're looking out for the dignity of an individual. So there are times that we go into lockdown because no one needs to see this individual possibly escorted out of the building or things of that sort. So that just because we go into a lockdown doesn't mean that there is anything bad going on in the building. This is a quick note related to those crisis action plans. One of the things at the high school that we have an advantage over the elementary and the middle school, and I will tell people this often, is that we have child development on our side. As kids get older, they develop, and their brains are developing. And so that helps us out quite a bit. If you ever have a problem, and I want to thank everyone, well, thank you to all of you for coming in throughout the district, and a special thank you to those of you who come to the high school. And to those of you who have not come to the high school yet, I'd love to welcome you. It's a great group of kids that are here, a great group of individuals to work with as well. If ever you have a problem in a classroom, I want you to call us in the office immediately. We'll get somebody there. We don't want anyone to be unsupported or to feel unsupported in a classroom. Those things are dealt with then through the office is the way that we do it. We don't have the radios we don't have as many of the radios like they have at Humke, but that's the way that we handle it is through a phone call to the office, and then they would radio, to the appropriate people that need it. Other thing I'd like to really talk about is on ASAP, please leave notes. Those notes, I don't know, can't speak for anywhere but here, but I can say that I do read through the notes. There aren't many of them that are left, and it's really helpful to know. Not in a punitive sense of going back to a teacher to say, hey, Cal left this note that said this, but it's really helpful feedback, even possibly to a teacher to say, or to the whole group to say, when we leave plans for guest teachers, we need to make sure that we're including this or include that. You are the ones that have the best eye on what's left. As far as what is left for you in terms of plans and what would really be helpful. So
You mean you read them too?
I read them as well.
See, I didn't leave any last year because I always leave such good notes to the teacher when I leave.
Oh, and those, if you're leaving those, if there's an issue or if there is something you want to commend someone for, or if there is something that you think this could be addressed, leave those notes in ASAP. I don't need the individual reports like you would leave for the teachers. I don't need that. But the notes like if, hey, let's say Steve leaves great plans, things like that, and I'll address that and say, hey, the feedback was that you left great plans. And I'm not saying I go through and read them every day or anything like that, but periodically I'll go through. And so those kind of notes.
Okay.
I don't need the individual like first hour, unless first hour was really, really tough, then I'd like those, that. But you can also just stop and tell me or if I come by. So, any questions or anything that?
That's like, I've stopped at the high school for 3 years. I have never had a problem with one student.
Give him a praise.
Yeah, I'm not being funny. Respectful, I've never had a problem. They've always been
No,
very,
the
very
high
good.
school is really good.
It's very good.
They're
And the
very good
teachers
kids.
leave good plans. I just don't have any problem. And if I have a problem where I don't know how to run a projector, I don't know how to do, the kids know. how.
Yeah, we just asked the kids.
Yeah.
Well, and I think to that comment, I think when you look at this progression of, developmentally, and Keith uses that term quite often, where, we've got life's developmental processes on our side here at the high school. But what are we doing through the other messy years? Because, they just didn't get that way. So as a district, how are we being strategic and purposeful in growing them to be those respectful high school kids. And that's really what we're trying to be more deliberate about, especially as our clientele continues to change, right? There's no secret here that we're struggling with, maybe it's economics, all of the things that might go into a community that, are challenges. And we continue to get families that are harder to work with in some instances. So we have to use practices that are not shaming, but really working with them to support them and help them and really, I guess, build that connectivity. So.
I mean, I had a day the internet was down for the whole day, and I was there, and it was a business class, and they had to do the whole assignment on the internet.
Wow.
So I could, but they were great, the kids just got all their homework out, they got cards out, played cards, they were great.
Awesome.
Played some Monopoly,
That's that responsible independence that we're talking about. That's what we want to build, absolutely. So Mr. Johnson, thank you. Any other questions around that topic?
I just thought of a random thought. So something I found really helpful as a sub, especially to a new school, is like updated and really accurate school maps.
Yeah, we
With,
do,
like,
they're in
with
here.
Good labels.
Yeah,
Awesome.
good. Thank you. So up next, yeah, thank you to all of you for being here. So what we want to do is we want to learn some more about ELA because the district, in our strategic plan, there's a large focus on instructional strategies, and part of that is how we're working with students to learn English, right? Reading and writing. So we have Mrs. Baldwin here who's going to be sharing with us the work that has been going on. And again, this is across the district. We're focusing in the young years, and really we're just finishing up the language workshop learning how to do the language workshop at Humke. And this year we're going to be going into the readers workshop. And then the middle school has spent quite a bit of time with readers writers workshop, and then the high school as well. So Susan's going to share more about that work. And what does it look like? And Susan, maybe you can touch on this. What does it look like for a guest teacher in our ELA classrooms nowadays?
Yeah, does everybody have a visual? I brought this visual because this is what we used to plan our lessons. So, if you're interested. So we start with the star. That's where our class period begins. And so when you come into a classroom for ELA, you might expect that there are going to be some warm-up activities, a bell ringer, that the kids are used to. So hopefully, if we have those structures and the kids are, on their A games, they're going to come in and they're going to hopefully get to work right away. Maybe it's reading a book, maybe it's doing an exercise, finishing up something from yesterday. So, you might have that window of opportunity. And then there's that mini lesson where we take 10, 15 minutes to teach a lesson. It might be around grammar, it might be about a reading strategy or a writing strategy. And then most of the time you can see is where kids practice that skill. So if I'm teaching a summarization skill, looking for key ideas and details, that's where the kids are going to practice. And as a teacher, I'm circulating. So if you're co-teaching with somebody and the regular English teacher is there and your special ed support, you can help circulate and talk to the kids. And that would be the number one thing that I would recommend. The kids are used to us talking to them, conferencing, we call it, and asking questions about what are you reading and what's happening in the plot and characterization, and actually a commitment that I think that the English department can work on and that I'll help them through is creating a bank of questions for you to ask, whether it's reading, writing, so that if they're working on writing their drafts when you're there, you can go around and talk to individual students, asking them 1 or 2 questions before you move on. So then you're engaging a little bit more and you can build up some of those relationships too. And then there's a closer of some sort. It might be just a quick response. You may or may not have that in your plans, but that debrief is a good way for us to check their understanding and make sure that we're on the right track, or if we need to make adjustments from day to day. Along with this, I know a lot of you who've been at the high school, the Good Fit books. Students are going to continue to have a Good Fit book. At the middle school, I know that they have books too that every student is expected, although they don't always follow through, to bring their books to class, every day. So if they ever have any extra time, they should be reading that.
What is a Good Fit book?
A Good Fit book is a lot of things. It's a novel that is interesting. It is maybe slightly more than their Lexile, their current reading level, maybe a little bit more of a challenge for them. It might not be necessarily. Some students choose books that are a great challenge to them as far as a reading level, but their interest is there, so it's worth it for them and they love it. But it's just engaging reading is kind of the bottom line, and hopefully they'll already have that. And you can always direct them like, well, if you're gonna get done with writing your draft today, I see it's done. Read your Good Fit book is a good response, and that's true in any
And
classroom.
that's the language they use?
Good
Okay,
Fit
awesome.
book, yep. So, so that's always a good strategy for you too, for that kid who maybe gets done a little bit earlier. But our whole process is around helping us to engage students in their learning process, so that they're, these little chunks, if you want to think of it, and this big chunk. But there are smaller chunks. We might at some point stop the process and, okay, everybody's got the same question around this, so then we kind of bring them back and do a little bit more of instruction. But having those conversations with those kids is really helpful. I know last year, I'll pick on Gary a little bit because I did it to Gary in my classroom. I left him a list of my students. I left some of my notes and then blank spots so then he could go and just fill in some of the responses, so that when he was there, a couple of kids, of course, I'm fine, I'm good. Or they would tell him something that I was like, what are you doing? So then I always knew who to talk to the next day first. And then I could just kind of scan through and, oh, okay, well, and I don't even know how much Gary really understood some of what they were telling him, but it made sense to me, and it worked really, really well. So hopefully we can kind of continue that type of lesson plans, because then the kids know that it's not a free day when the sub is there. Right. So that's the goal. That's the hope, that we can keep those kids engaged every single day, whether we're there or not.
And this model's used 4 through 8, right?
Yeah, we're working towards that, I think, more. 4, 5, are they
Well,
just starting it?
4, 8, or 412, really. I think this is gonna be similar at the elementary. They're just now getting into the reader's workshop.
Yeah.
I know it goes 4 through 8.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you the coach for the elementary then too, or is there somebody?
612.
6:12, okay, so then is there somebody for the elementary then?
Yeah, Jackie Hines.
Yeah.
Jackie, okay.
I just have a question here. So the length of time for this is pretty great, isn't it? I mean, it's like an hour and a half or something like that? Or-
At the middle school it is,
Yeah.
6, 7, 8.
And I like how the structure operates, but as a substitute, it's also.
You mean a guest
time-
teacher?
Thank you. Because of the, just the length of time, all of a sudden I would remember, especially if it's something that they're working on a computer, that all of a sudden some would be on the means and they're underneath a table and they're trying to, and then I would say,
That's good.
you can be on the computer as long as you're working on this, and I have to see the computer at all times. They did not like that.
Okay.
And I just said, that's my job, I'm sorry, but I just need to make sure that you're working on, something that's related with the schoolwork. But they like to hide in the corners, they're very, very good at that kind of stuff. And, and I kind of want to allow some leeway as long as they're getting the work done, but it's hard as a guest teacher to.
I'm gonna put that in my
kind of
notes.
Yeah.
We can
monitor
pass that
time,
along.
Make sure that they're doing what you want them to do.
So really, what you're saying is, for a guest teacher, it's hard to keep that stamina that long, especially when it's, I think the
Yeah.
middle school is like 70 minutes.
Yeah, and the more structured it is, as you're moving from one
Yeah.
thing, that it kind of helps guide them and
So
keep them out of.
So maybe we can work with
Yeah.
teachers to build in some extra structure for that. Good.
Related to that, at the middle school, I don't know if they're still doing this, but they had mini workshop time. I've learned through experience that while the teacher might allow them to go wherever they want to and sit on the floor and read, I've learned that I tell them they have to stay in their desk and read there, because we've had some incidents where they take advantage
Yeah,
and they're fine in their desks.
yeah, good point.
I always give them the benefit of the doubt. I
First
said,
time
you
I
can
see it.
start there, but if
Right.
you don't behave,
Right.
you're back.
Yeah.
Good, thank
Yeah,
you.
sometimes.
When I was at the high school last year, they had a policy that when they got off the school bus in the morning, they went into their home.
Their advisories?
Yeah, and they played basketball and they
Yeah.
played games and so forth. And that upset me a little, because I thought they're coming to work, they should sit down and start to work, then they can relax later on. Just as if they were going to an office as an adult, you start to work when you get there. Because
But the idea was they need a safe space so that they could feel like they like coming to school. But what's your ideas about that?
Well, I think they switched it up a bit this year, but again, what we're trying to do at all three schools is to build those connections between students and students, students and adults, adults and students, and that through advisory, I mean, and that's what we heard about this morning too. How do we build those relationships? Because back when we went to school, probably the majority of us, we came in, they said, get out your books. We got out our books and started learning.
Yeah.
And we can't, remember she said this morning, you can't get there unless you're first emotionally ready to learn. And we have forced kids right into learning and they're not ready. And then we say, well, why don't they do, we taught this, they don't.
They don't remember.
So have you taught it if they don't remember it? So,
When I first was here, and I found that too, the same idea that this lady talked about, I thought, oh my gosh, what are we doing? But I noticed in the subsequent sessions of substitute guest teaching that I did do, the students really came in and they realized, well, that's done, and now what are we going to do together? I mean, it was super great.
awesome,
Amazing.
that's good to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
So is that time period like, okay, we got 15 minutes for coffee clutch and then we go on to something else?
Well, it's not
Or is it
coffee
just-
clutch, it's
Well, I'm just
very,
saying,
but it's supposed to be relaxed, yet very deliberate and purposeful. You know how she talked this morning about bumping into that Terry Whitmore,
Right.
that
Right.
trying to really interact and get to know kids on a different level?
So is that something that happens, like, I'm assuming that at the high school level, you have?
It's third hour though now, advisory.
Yeah.
It's not right away.
Oh, that's what it's
Yeah.
Right away, you start classes, third hour is advisory where they go to the teachers. They usually have a planned topic when they're in there unless you
Yeah.
have a guest teacher and then it's usually study hall or whatever they need to do.
What I saw was first hour coming in, it was not structured, the kids took over and it was chaos for 45 minutes. And then they were expected to settle down and start to focus and learn something, and they weren't. They
Okay.
couldn't do it. But if it's third hour, it might
Yeah,
be
it's
better
third
because
hour
they
now.
should,
Yeah.
they get off the school bus, that's chaos. And they come in, they should be focused when they walk in the door.
Yeah, and if you're at the other schools, we do morning meeting right away, and that is a bit more structured. And I think if you were to walk into that same classroom when you were not there, and not that,
Okay, sure.
you probably wouldn't see that, I hope, right? It's hard because I mean, even if I go in a classroom, it can be chaotic because
What I
it's that
saw was
newness.
The adults were throwing balls around and catch games, you know.
Oh,
and-
yeah, that's at the middle school.
And it's like,
Well, that's
that's recess, that's later.
Well, and that's purposeful because every morning meeting starts with a greeting, a share, and a game plan. So that's all done on purpose through the responsive classroom to really build those relationships. And I'm not saying it's perfect, because when there's a guest teacher, when there's somebody there that doesn't have that relationship, that can have law and order, because you gotta have law and order when you got 25 kids. So, and maybe that's something we need to do more about, because I want to have follow-up sessions throughout the year to help us, learn what practices we're learning in the schools, because we get you a couple times a year. You're filling in while our teachers are out there learning all these other practices.
That would
So-
be nice to have a list of the practices that go on at each school prior to the school year starting.
Thank you.
I know that's a lot of mailing, but I'm just saying that I'm hearing stuff that I haven't heard for years, and I'm going, oh, so that's happening at the middle school, this is happening at the high school, third hour, and, I don't wanna walk into it and go, oh, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Because when you have egg on your face, you can't do anything,
right, yeah.
just saying.
Well, and that all comes with a teacher's plan too. Do you know what I mean? It's
in the teacher's plan, but it would be nice to know about it ahead of time, because
Yeah.
some of these are new techniques that have not
Mhm.
been used for years.
Yeah, I'll work on it. Thank you.
Just a thought.
Yeah, good idea.
If I could I want to reinforce the learning of grammar, because in English classes, I think that's important, and it's something that, yeah, I think something that, when you start to learn another language, it makes it a whole lot easier if you understand English.
Oh, yeah.
And I am so embarrassed sometimes. I know that Stevens Point has canceled a lot of their English classes for the teachers. And they don't learn at high school, they go to Stevens Point, they learn to be a teacher, and they don't learn it at Stevens Point anymore. So they come back and they use bad grammar in front of the students, and it reinforces the lacks. I don't want to say anything bad about people here, but it's embarrassing.
What it's come to, well, we can talk about that later. But yes, I agree. I mean, we're not gonna just fix that overnight, right? But yeah, it is important. So any other questions for Susan? And Susan is now an instructional coach, so she can be, she's gonna be working with teachers inside classrooms, supporting teachers. And we also could have Susan working with us, as guest teachers to get more training on the workshop model. So thank you, Susan. Did you get through everything?
I did.
Awesome. You're kind of getting a whirlwind experience here. Up next is Nathan Strelo. And then we'll try to sneak in a break before Brian gets here. So Nathan is one of our high school math teachers. And he is going to talk a little bit about another new practice that has come about probably since many of us were in school. And that is how we're teaching math. And then he also is going to talk about co-teaching. And the district, in our strategic plan, there's a lot about co-teaching under equity. When I first came, the district was heavily focused in on a pull-up. And so over the last 6 years, we've really done, I think, a really good job of bringing about more inclusive practices. And Nathan's been on the front edge of that. High school started it. As a matter of fact, we had the majority of our kids, when I first came, were pulled out in the basement here. And we really have worked hard at trying to change that. And again, change is what? Hard. And so it's been a practice that's come about. When I first came, we were turning over EBD teachers like almost twice a year. So we're really trying to get our kids, we still have the EBD, emotionally disturbed issues out there. But we're really trying to work with them differently in the regular classroom where they do feel like they're important. They do feel like they've got a voice. They do feel like they can add to a community. So Nathan's been on the front of that. So he's going to talk a little bit about that. And then CPM math, which is, we're working on introducing that in the district, 6-12. 6-12?
We're up to geometry right
Yeah,
now.
6-12.
Yeah.
So would you be so kind to step up there because we're videotaping?
Okay.
And then you can just tell your story from up there. And then we'll have any questions that people have around co-teaching or math. And Brian Grill's going to be here, our Director of Special Ed, to talk a little bit more about co-teaching as well. So maybe you want to start with CPM.
Okay, so my name's Nate Strill. I've been teaching at the high school. This will be my 16th year. This is going to be my first year of teaching the CPM. But I've gone through the trainings the last 3 years now with it. So how CPM works is it's like a workshop model, much like English, where students are given a core problem or core problems that they're going to be working on in groups. So that's the part that's going to be different. They're going to be in groups of 3 or 4, and they are going to be working through and struggling and learning through the material. So with the guest teacher, the job is going to be to kind of be circulating around. I know not everyone is comfortable with math, but do the best that you can, and there's going to be students within the group so that they're there to help each other. So as we're going through and doing this, it's the process that the student is helping other students learn the math, and when they're going through and doing the math and helping the other ones, if you can teach it, then you learn it a little bit better. So there's core problems, usually 2 or 3 lessons, depending on how the teacher is setting it up in their sub-plans. And then there's always something for them to work on. In my classroom, we usually have a warm-up that they start the day with, and then the objective learning target for the day that they're going to be working on. So sometimes it seems like it's controlled chaos going on in the math room, because there is discussion, there's debate, but it should be within those groups. You know, if it starts getting across the groups, then that's when, you know, the teacher needs to come in and make sure that they're back on task. You know, something that they talk about in our training is that, you know, we're just circulating around the room, you pick a pattern, and if the group over there has their hand up and I'm over here, I don't just go running over there. I let them think about the process, and I work my way over there. I don't ignore them, but I don't go running every place that a hand goes up. And then how the co-teaching works in with that, well, it's just one extra body, which is nice. So if you're co-teaching in a math classroom and you're there for the special education teacher, you know, being up involved with the classroom, you know, every once in a while sitting down with the group and going through problems with them, helping them. You know, once you get in there, we really don't know the difference between a student with an IEP or a student without an IEP. They're all intermixed within the groups, and they are all working together towards the goal of the student learning objective for the day.
So can I interject? I've heard so many good comments about students with special needs being in there. They actually, and it goes along with what Nathan's saying, you don't know who's receiving special ed services. But the whole premise is, because I've heard and I've been a part of, you know, the people that are against this math the way we do it now, right, in these groups, because you're saying, well, what if they don't know their math fast? All right, well, we're gonna have Nathan explain that, well, how that all works. But what I've heard is, I can't believe that a Terry Whitmore, who is receiving special needs services, added to that conversation what he added. I mean, in his story, there's 1,000 stories that are created, but the whole premise is to put kids into that challenge where they really have to struggle. And it's incredible, and you probably have more stories that you could share about how the students that we wouldn't think could answer or contributes. So that is a big communication issue with our community, right? And with you folks, our teachers, our staff, helping us switch from the old way of thinking where we all sat independently doing our math to this new way of doing math. And I don't know,
Yeah, that's the big thing. You need to trust the process that's going on, because it's they call it mixed-based practice. So you go through and you're working on a topic, and then it keeps coming back. So it's like a spiral. So you might not on the first day get to, let's say, the quadratic formula, but you're going through and you're just doing bits and pieces of it, and you're working your way up to it. So you can't kind of on the first day just spill the beans if they have a question and say, oh, you know, this is a quadratic formula. No, there's a process that they're working towards, even though they might have questions like, why can't I do this right now? We gotta go through, we gotta trust the process, and that's where the practice comes through, and the facts and all those things that they're going through and working on through the process.
How do you work with the students who are a little quicker than the others that to catch on?
Well, within the group work, I mean, we're going through and we're trying to make sure that they're helping with the other students. I mean, there are extension problems that are within the curriculum that, you know, if the whole group gets done, that they can go through and start working on. There's different strategies that, I mean, we're not going to ask the guest teachers to go through and use, but they can go through and go around and be ambassadors to other groups and help. So there's other numerous ways within the curriculum that's built in to help both the high end and the low end.
I have a suggestion. I would need my own IEP for math. When we're trying to teach math and we don't know how to do it, it'd be nice to know how it's done. I know at the middle school, they'll write it out, and if I can see it on how it's done, I can figure it out, then I'm jumping for joy. But last year in math class, I couldn't even find a book that would tell me how to do something, and
Okay.
there was nothing to get anything based on, so
Right.
we need to know how to do it.
It's
to
like
see it,
having
yeah.
the teacher's edition that has the,
Anything would help,
Yeah.
yeah. And there was nothing last year.
okay.
And the nice thing is too, and for those that don't know me, I'm Brian Grell, I'm the Director of Student Services. When you're in a co-teaching setting too, so say Nate and I are co-teachers, you know, and say Nate's out, you know, I've probably worked with him co-planning to say, I know how to do that problem. So I would want to talk with you ahead of time, and if I know, okay, math isn't your strong point, I would go over that with you, but then say, okay, I'm gonna take the role of like Nathan today and be the content specialist because him and I know what's going on. I need you to fill this role. And that's what we're gonna communicate with you. So I might say, I need you to make sure to assist this group while I assist this group.
But there's not
So-
always co-teaching in the room.
Correct. But
So-
I was just giving the
Right.
co-teaching
No, that's a-
setting, but two
Yeah.
for when, go ahead.
Going through and having problems worked out for you or something like that. I know when I have usually Jim Kirchmeier comes in as my sub, so he was a math teacher. So I usually don't have too much problem with that, but if it's something that he hasn't done for a while, you know, he does come in before, or I'll leave little notes for him about things that I want him to look for. You know, I don't know if other teachers do that or not, but I mean, that would be very helpful in that.
It might be you're planning for Jim and he doesn't show up and someone else does.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is it often helps to leave an answer key. Sometimes we can work the problem.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
There's usually nothing though, and you're sitting there going, I have no idea how to do this, so you guys are kinda on your own.
Yeah.
You don't wanna do that.
No.
Right, yeah, so yeah, an answer key.
So we can think that through.
Yeah, I usually have all that left out in my
Yeah.
room, but.
But sharing that with the other
Yeah,
math
sharing that
teachers.
with the other math teachers, yeah.
So you will do that?
I can have the
Bring it.
high school here.
Is there something similar to like the good fit book for the English model where if a group does get done quick, you can have them work on something?
Homework.
Okay. Do they always have homework? that they
There
can do?
will
Okay.
always be, they're called review preview problems
Oh,
in CPM. So they're, every day they'll have something, so.
No, this is just an idea, and it probably already is in place. If there's a student that's extremely proficient in the math, perhaps that student could be your helper for that day.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, that,
Yeah. That's an ambassador.
and almost like in any subject,
Yeah.
but, you know, it's, you know.
Yeah, use the kids to support, you know, our work. Because, you know, we certainly want to challenge, you know, there was always kids when I was teaching that they deserved to be challenged versus just going around and helping other kids. So you want to balance that out. But we can leave that to the regular ed teacher.
Yeah,
The
for that
guest
one.
teacher, let's use every strategy we can on that particular day. Use so-and-so to be an ambassador. Yeah, great idea. So, did you want to touch a little bit more on co-teaching, or because Brian's here too, and Brian is student services, and he's going to talk a little bit about co-teaching and special ed.
I can see what he has to say and I can just chime in if I have as a.
Well, but we've got a challenge. I want the group to take a break. And so could you give them, Brian, maybe something to walk and talk about as they go up to the lounge and get a little snack and treat? Maybe you could just start your presentation and then give them.
No, I do, I have it.
Okay.
I got you. All right, for those that don't know me, I'm Brian Grill, I'm the Director of Student Services. A lot of you probably have seen me around the buildings. I cover the
Brian.
elementary, middle, and high school, so.
We're taping this, so you gotta say whatever I've been talking from back here too.
Oh, I have to come over
Yeah.
here?
You have to be in front. too.
Right next to
You have to be in front.
Yeah, come stand right over.
All right.
Sorry.
All right.
I'm gonna go make sure, so you guys come that way then, right? I'll make sure there's drinks out.
So to start to get you just kind of thinking, because co-teaching, I'm sure as you talk with different teachers and things like that, you get different definitions of what it is. I found a video that was put up by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction that kind of defines co-teaching. So for your walk and talk, I'm going to show you, it's a small, quick video, it's 3 minutes, that just defines what it is. So I want you, as you walk and talk, to see what is it that you think co-teaching is as you're walking with your partner, okay? So I have a quick video here.
We're gonna watch that first.
What?
We'll watch the video first.
Yes, watch video first and then I'll play on this back screen.
And then we take a partner and walk upstairs for lunch and we talk.
Yep, and then talk about what it is you think co-teaching is.
Yeah, that one's not working.
Can't wait for this one.
Can you turn down and shut this one off?
Can't both, we both can't both.
Oh, they can't
cancel each
both?
other. Yeah.
Oh, that's
It
it.
should,
Yeah. Oh, no,
I
I
turned
just-
this one on, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's right, there's a video.
So let's see if I have volume.
Here's what co-teaching means.
All right, let's start over
Co-teaching, often with the goal of helping all students, including those with disabilities, succeed. When it's really done effectively, here's what co-teaching means. It's two licensed educators collaborating with equal responsibility for the instructional process in the classroom. Each educator brings expertise to the co-teaching relationship. One might begin with more knowledge of the content area, and one might begin with greater expertise in designing instruction for kids with disabilities. They're intentionally planning for the best results for every single child, drawing on their own unique expertise and learning from each other. This working relationship has to be strong, with shared responsibility, good communication, and above all, trust. And there has to be sufficient planning and collaboration time to foster it. It is important to remember that with the wide variety of kids schools need to serve, there's a continuum of educational placements that schools need to offer. So the decision to engage a student in a co-taught class has to be based on a collaborative look at a variety of information sources. For students in special education, this is a decision to be made by their individualized education program teams. But for many different kids, co-teaching can provide a truly supportive learning environment, helping improve their literacy and other academic skills, helping them become more college and career ready. When done well and done intentionally, co-teaching is closely connected to so many things schools are working on, a powerful way to help all students reach their greatest potential. We've created this website to help you stay up to date about best practices and other information related to co-teaching.
So as you walk, grab a drink, grab a snack, think about from that video, what do you see is co-teaching? And I'll even add a second. What do you see your role when you walk into a co-taught environment? What does it think you need to do? So go ahead, take a break, and we'll see you in a few minutes. So from watching the video, what is your definition? What do you think about co-teaching? What is it? So as you're walking and talking with your partner.
Two people on the same page.
Two people on the same page, yep. What else?
Two people supporting one another.
Two people supporting one another.
Different expertise, but the same goal.
Different expertise, but the same goal. Those are the things I want you to remember, because when you're serving in a co-taught classroom, part of the reason we went towards this, how many of you have ever seen this photo before? Has anyone seen this?
Lots of years.
Yes. So, you probably saw me last year then. The difference, what we're trying to do with co-teaching, it's not just putting them in the same room and saying, okay, now everyone's on the same playing field. No, what we're trying to do with co-teaching, that's why you have the two different expertises. You have a curriculum specialist, so like Nathan, for example, would be the content area specialist. He knows the math. And I'll even say, I come from a special education background. My role is to say, all right, now I know this student A here, they may not be good at the skills part. So one of the supports they may need in that room is, say, a multiplication table. Or they need a calculator because they need that. This one over here has difficulty with the process of things. So maybe as they talk through the process of how to do a problem, we're sitting there writing the steps so they remember what the steps are and they don't forget. And then student C may just have memory issues, so they're not remembering what happened yesterday or the week before that built into this skill. So I'm making references back, and I might have Nathan, that's where we plan together, and we're gonna talk about what is each of our roles? Who do we need to help? Because maybe Nathan is really good about the strategy and process part, and he's like, I got a way to teach that. So even though this might be a student with disability, it does not mean if I'm filling the special education role with co-teaching that that kid is my sole responsibility. We both have an equal investment in all the kids. So if I'm sitting there and I'm going in to be a guest teacher for the day, I might go to Nathan and say, hey Nathan, what's my role today? What do you need me to do? Because probably during co-planning, they decided, hey, this person needs to serve this role today. So you might be the person working on the skill, or you might be working on the memory side with the kid. But they're gonna kind of help facilitate what it is. Because what we're trying to do is not just build, hey, they're all getting the same thing. We're thinking about each of these kids and saying, what is it they need to succeed? That's why we went this route of co-teaching. Because sometimes when people hear co-teaching, they think this is what we're creating. We're just creating an environment where all kids are in it. No, we're creating an environment where we're thinking about all the kids and what they need to be successful. So like I said, here's a video. I was saying when I started this, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction put this together because there are a lot of schools right now that are looking at this as an opportunity to create equity. And they said, well, hey, everyone kind of has their own definition. So they put standards out there. And what we're doing as a district, I am having co-teaching trainings, and we're looking at those standards and say, how are we becoming better at co-teaching? What are we doing and what steps are we taking? Now, depending on the role you're serving for the day, they're the general education teacher or you're the special education teacher. It's important to know which one you're in because they have different roles and responsibilities. So the general education teacher, a lot of times, if they're out and you're the math teacher for the day, then you may be saying, hey, I'm the one in charge making sure the content is being taught, we're covering everything that needs to be covered for the day. If you're over on the other side with the special ed, notice you're the one over here, you might be assisting the students in getting their accommodations. But there are roles that both of you play. So I think sometimes too, the part here with the behavioral supports, that's one when you're co-teaching, it's both of your jobs. So especially at the elementary level or middle school level, if a kid has a check-in, check-out sheet or they have a point sheet, make sure too, if you're giving them their points or you're looking at the sheet, you want to know what, you can fill it out on your own. If I said, hey Nathan, I think the kid gets this, are you okay with it? And he gives me a yup, I'm gonna fill it out for that kid. But it's our job to both communicate. Because in a co-taught room, he may know the behavior plan for a student too. So if you're walking in as a guest teacher and you're like, hey, I'm noticing some behaviors, don't be afraid to go to Nathan and say, hey, does this student have a behavior plan? Should I be doing anything special for him? Because he should know just as much, and the special ed teacher, if there's a behavior plan for a student, should be leading you that as part of their plans. Because it's our job together to work with all students. Anything you want to add, Nathan? Or?
I'm just gonna say that, yeah, each classroom is probably gonna look a little bit different. Talk, with the co-teacher when you walk in, what they want you to do, that day. Sometimes it might just be sitting down and going through and helping a student take notes, or they might actually want you to, go through with the workshop model. Just have a discussion with the teacher that you're going to be working with that day, because they're all going to be a little bit different on what they want you to do and when. And if you're coming for math, maybe if you're in that same room multiple hours, you might just sit and try to learn the material yourself so that you're a little bit more comfortable with it the next time it comes around. You've done that before, right? Where you just kind of sit there and watch the first time because you knew it was coming again. So, and if that's what you're comfortable with, state that to the teacher that you're going to be working with. I just kind of want to sit back and see what's going on this first hour. I know I'm going to be back with you again, so I can better serve you the other hours.
Go ahead, sorry.
One thing I've noticed, and I don't know if anyone else has, but when you're in a classroom and both the teacher and the special ed teacher are gone, you have 2 subs in there. It's a whole different situation.
Can I just say something real quick to that one? I feel like I need to give a shout out to paraprofessionals or aides. If in a co-taught room, sometimes there is a paraprofessional or aide in the room, they're a wealth of knowledge. Please feel free to use them.
That doesn't happen real often in high school. Then we get a lot.
Education. Yeah.
Yep.
And I'll say at the high school, it's okay to talk with each other before starting and say, hey, if you're like, I'm not the best at this math part, and someone else is like, oh, I'm good with math. It's okay that, hey, you're subbing for the math teacher, I'm subbing for the special ed, and we say, let's just switch because I feel comfortable with this. That's okay. Because like co-teaching is, like the video said, you gotta have good communication and great trust. So, and what I even teach staff, I'm like, there's no pride in this part. I'm like, I know my strengths, Nathan knows his, and we have to talk it through. It's not like, hey, since I know this and you don't, I'm better than you. That's not what it is at all. So, the one thing you might see, because co-teaching does have different styles. So depending on where you are, they may be doing co-teaching in a different form. So just know the 5 styles. So if there is what's called duet teaching, which is team teaching, which just means as maybe Nathan's performing a problem and they're talking through it or he's reviewing something, we're both talking, we're both jumping in. There's not a lead, you wouldn't know who's the general ed teacher, who's the special ed teacher. We have equal knowledge and an equal role in doing it. A lot of times, number 2 is where you may be as a guest teacher. Is you will have one teacher there and they're leading the lesson and you're assisting. And when you assist, you might be going around making sure kids are filling in notes. If they have a question specifically that they may not want to ask the whole group or ask their table, you might be helping them through. A lot of times when you're a guest teacher, you may be in that situation. The 1-1 teach, 1 make multi-sensory. You may see this more at the elementary level. This might be, hey, teacher's up here reading a story. And then you're over here, if there's characters, if that's what you're talking about today, you might be over here on a whiteboard writing down the characters so kids are starting to see who it is in the story. So you're making it multi-sensory for those that are visual learners, because they may not remember everything that's auditorily presented to them. Parallel teaching, also, this could happen from high school all the way to elementary. What parallel teaching is, you're just making the group smaller. You're both teaching the exact same lesson. So it's just to make the group smaller and you're just working in 2 separate areas of the room. So that way it's just, oh, we know we have a large group of kids. I really need to make sure they're getting and understanding this. So we're gonna split the group in half. That's one strategy that we have used. I'll say I think I see this more at the elementary. I think sometimes at the high school. And then the last one too, station teaching. So if you're in with Mr. Strelo or at the high school in the English class, and we're working on this, elementary, middle, and high school, if you're, say, working through writing a paper, they might have different stations in the room for people to go to and get help. So at the high school level, and I don't know, has anyone in here subbed for Mr. Dye at the high school?
I did.
Yep. So what he does sometimes when they're writing papers, he'll say, hey, head over here if you need help with your introduction. Head over here if you need help with your conclusion. If you're independent, go over here. And then you might be working a station that day as you're being the guest teacher. And that's another form of co-teaching because they're saying, what is your strengths? We're gonna work to our strengths. I'm gonna help kids with intros because I'm really good at thesis statements and things like that. I'm good at the conclusion, so the teachers have planned and said, what are we good at, and this is gonna be the station that you man. So too, a teacher may say to you as you're going through, they may say, this is kind of the framework we're working within today. Anything you wanna add to that, Nate?
Well, can I add one thing? Am I allowed?
Go for it.
So one of the things that I hear that really is important, and we have really gotten good at making sure that we have guest teachers when our special ed teachers are out. Back in the day, if the special ed teacher, when I was teaching, the special ed teacher was gone, we just didn't replace, but we value both teachers. But one of the things that happens oftentimes, and I know there's a comfort level that you have to grow into in working in a co-taught classroom, but if you're in the classroom and what teachers will say, and I don't know if they don't have the courage to say it, please get involved. If we're just hiring guest teachers to fill in for a special ed teacher, and you're just standing in the room, we should be hiring somebody. So please get involved. And I think sometimes they have a hard time saying it, right? So just dig in and get dirty with it, please.
And it's okay to just walk in the room and start the conversation. I'm here today, I'm filling in for who? What's my role in co-teaching?
I want to help.
You know, because like I said, a lot of times it'll be the one teach, one assist a lot of times at first until you've been a guest teacher for a few times. And then either the content specialist or the special ed teacher, you guys get to know each other and know what you feel comfortable with. But don't feel bad saying, yep, I feel good with this, or no, I'm not completely comfortable. Because we'll help work within your strengths and weaknesses, so that way it's successful for you, it's successful for the kids, and we're all on the same page.
And we understand, now remember this, our classroom teachers have been working on this co-teaching for 3 or 4 years, and we're still practicing. So here we are just telling you to jump right in, right? So we understand, but do dig in and try to get dirty with it.
And not every classroom is co-taught, like Mr. Strelo said. So some of them are, not everyone is. So just know too, anytime you take a guest teacher position, there is the potential, but it won't be every time, so.
Just assume you're on your own.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing when you actually have somebody under review.
Yep.
Is that written well on the plan, so that you would know to expect a guest teacher?
Yeah, they write them in their
Okay.
teacher's notes, but when you get called in the morning or you look at a thing, you just take it for granted you're on your own.
Okay.
It makes it, you get that state of mind and then it's just like, yes, help! You know, so.
Awesome.
If you look on the schedule, you can see that
Oh,
they match
okay,
up
sure.
to room numbers. If they're in the same room number, 208, 208, okay, you know,
Okay.
there's co-teaching.
Awesome. Good.
You know.
Any questions for me around co-teaching? Go ahead.
This is just a comment. Lot of Humpty Station teaching, when they do their rotations, and there's 5 things, and I've had nothing but good experience with co-teaching. And it is absolutely like her, oh yeah, somebody's here, yay. And you know, and there are times when I go, she's the co-teacher and I'm taking that job.
Yeah.
Because and when you can do those 5 rotations, it keeps the kids on track and.
And something new at Humke this year is we have a special ed teacher at every grade level. So every grade level, so there's 2 co-taught classrooms at every grade level with that one special ed teacher. So, yeah, that's gonna be, I think it's gonna, it's gonna pay dividends.
Yeah, it is. Josh, so I don't take too much of your time. I have an interview right now that I'm going to, so I need that. Yeah, I do need it for part of it, so.
All right, I'll wing it.
You gonna wing it?
Yeah.
Well-
You have your laptop?
We can plug this one in.
Okay.
It's an antique, but you probably gotta be plugged in. So, did you have anything, did you get throughout everything?
Got it.
Wow.
We're good.
We're doing
We're
well.
ready.
You guys really
Thank
are,
you.
I'd take you on the road.
Thank you, thank you.
We've got 13 minutes to go to Alice.
So, Mr. Cole, they already have questions for you, so this is good. You wanna start while I get that, why don't you kinda go up
Well, I
and
don't
get.
think you can use this one, because it's a 1910.
Are you sure? Well, what about our visual learners in here?
Well, I'm gonna have to
You'll act it out, so you're gonna get acting lesson 2.
First letter in Alice.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We're talking about Alice. This is what we use for any like active shooter situation in the school or anything that would be an emergency situation. It's an acronym, so you have Alice, ALICE. A is for alert, so we'll talk about that first. So the A for alert is how do we know that something bad's going on? Fire alarms.
See, they're already looking for visuals.
Fire alarms, people screaming, ah! People screaming, gunshots, windows breaking, anything that can alert you that, something bad's going on. If you're running down the hall screaming, hey, there's a guy with a gun in the hallway, whatever alerts you to that, that's your initial alert. And then you kind of go into, and it doesn't have to be in any order, it can just whatever. So, but we'll go through the order of ALICE. So then L is lockdown. So that's what we've all done for years, is lockdown. That's the basic of it, except they make a few changes to it. Is we're going to obviously lock the door, put all the blinds if we can. Most doors in our classrooms have windows. We're getting they should have window covers or something next to them. With this next grant, we're hoping to purchase all window covers for all the windows, so they'll all be the same. And then getting the kids hid throughout the classroom. We used to hide them in the corner. Everybody get in one corner, hide on their desk. Now we just want them spread out, hiding wherever they can, so they're not visual. I try to make them so they're not visual to the door, so they can't be seen. So if you spread them out wherever you can, and then barricade the door. And actually this year, we purchased barricades for the doors, and we'll go in the next classroom after I'm done talking, just to kind of show you the barricades that there are, how they're used, so you can know what they are. When you go to the classroom, you're not going, oh, what the heck is this thing, and how do you use it? So we'll show you how to use them real quick today. But that's like the initial step, is just that lockdown. Everybody feels safe. If they can't get in the room, we're good, right? So, and then you have the letter I, which is inform. And when you're informing, that's just hopefully keeping a real-time situation of this is, let's say they're here, they're in the science wing initially, and then you get maybe another information through the loudspeakers. Hey, now they're in the main office, so you can maybe make some different decisions on what you're going to do during those time of events of what's going on. It's all great, and when you put this on the presentation or paper of like, hey, we'll inform you every step of the way, every step that guy takes, it's probably not gonna happen.
No.
I'm just telling you. These incidents nationally last less than 5 minutes, and law enforcement national response time is 5 minutes. So we're getting here usually at the aftermath anyways, and that's kind of why they're doing these programs to get you guys to act so we can end them sooner and save more lives. There's other programs that just they're all kind of the same. There's Alice, run, hide, fight. It's all the same concept. We're going to lock down, we're going to run if we can, and we have to fight if we have to. So the information, in the presentation, they'll show you like this guy by the computer screen, with all the cameras, and like, yeah, great, he can tell you where he goes, but it's not going to happen. It's a panic situation. We'll do the best we can, but you might not get that information, so you just got to best act with the information you get. This C is for counter, and this is the very last option that we go with, is counter. If that person, let's say if the gun gets in your classroom, what are we going to do? We got to fight back, but they're not talking about fighting, like physically fighting. I mean, if you feel like you can, go right ahead, but it's more of distractions, I guess I would call it. So in anything that we do, there's a OODA loop process our brain goes through. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. You have to observe, orient, decide, and act. And if we can disrupt that, it's harder for us to do the job that we're trying to do. So I always explain, like, if a kid's taking a math test or a spelling test, and I would run in the room and throw things at them and run around screaming, how well are they gonna perform at that test? They're not gonna do very well. And that's disrupting that OODA loop that our brain has to do every time we decide to do something. So, you know, we teach to throw things, well, I do anyways, like even the little kids, throw whatever you can because it distracts them. And I use, like, if I'm at the range trying to qualify for the state so I can carry my firearm as a police officer, and I have a kindergarten class come in and throw things at me and scream and holler, I'm probably not passing at that day. So anything we can do to distract them. There is like a swarm technique that they teach, where if there's a bunch of adults, you can, everybody, one person gets the leg, another person gets the leg, one gets the arm, one gets the other arm, and we can hold them. Yeah, if there's enough of you, and if you feel comfortable doing that, because our natural responses are fight, flight, and freeze. And until it really, I can say, yeah, well, that guy comes in, I'm whooping him up. But until it happens, how do I know? You know, until it actually happens, it's like, oh yeah, I was going to beat him up, but now I just froze. You know? So until that actually happens, how do we know what we're going to do? You know, how often do we train this stuff for us to make those reactions? But just to kind of be prepared, like, if they get into our classroom, what can we do instead of just being shocked? We gotta do something, you know, to hopefully save lives and to react. And a lot of the studies out there with these active shooters, that 43% of them will commit suicide anyways once somebody tries to stop them, and 44% of them are stopped by police or a citizen acting. So that's like 86, 87% that are stopped if we act, if we just do something. And then they stop because they're kind of jaded. They don't want to, like, somebody to interrupt them. They're just trying to do a quick kill and say, hey, look how many I did. And you just had one yesterday? So what's today, Tuesday? 2 days ago in Florida, where the big Madden football gaming tournament, the champion last year lost. He got mad when got gone. 10 minutes later, came back, shot like a bunch of people, killed 2 of them. So just to, like, this doesn't happen in school, it happens all over. So these are now, you know, everything you learn can be taken anywhere. And just having some time to react and to do something about it, because when we do, you kind of become a hero. You're in the paper, look, principal, coach, stop this guy, principal, stop this guy. We're just trying to save lives, you know. So throwing things, having the kids scream and yell. I mean, if you were trying to teach a class and the kids just scream the whole time, you turn around and start banging your head against the wall, you know, because you're frustrated with them. So that will distract them, and that's kind of like the counter. It's not like, hey, the guy comes in, we're gonna like, okay, little Timmy, go punch him, because that ain't gonna work. You know, when I teach, I actually go in to every kindergarten class, and all of them think, oh yeah, I can beat you up, and I, come on, yeah, okay, go ahead. What are you gonna do? And they kick me and I go, okay, did that help? And they're like, no. You know, it's like, you know, get them to say, yeah, we can't fight. We're going to do other things, run around, scream, to save our lives. And then get to the E, which is evacuate. So with the information we hopefully can get, like if you knew that at the high school here that the guy shooting up the schools in the science wing and you're over here in the math wing, we could just get out of the school and don't have to worry about it. So kind of like it's kind of like fire. So the fire in the school, we don't stay. We get out because it's safe. So if we can, we get out it's safe. But then you kind of think, well, where am I going? What's out there? There is some unknown to that. So whatever you feel is safest, do it. If I feel safe that I can get out of here, we're out of here. If I feel like, hey, I feel 100% safest locking down, barricading the door, I'm going to do that. And there's a lot of teachers that told me, like, if I can make them not come in, why would I want them outside? I know I'm safe in here. So, you know, it's kind of up to you as you feel out the classroom, because all of you are probably going to different classrooms throughout the year. What does that classroom look like? What's there? What are my options? And I kind of want people to go every time they go in the classroom just to kind of look around when you first get there and say, if something bad does happen, where is everything that I can do? What is out here? Some teachers may have like sports memorabilia, golf club, baseball bat, hockey stick that they may just have for looks, but really it's because if the bad guy does come in, I have something to hit him with. You know, anything that we have that can help us. Because of the windows can be broke. So if they break the window, I'm gonna hit them with something as soon as that arm comes through, you know, or, you know, so maybe I can just take the gun or whatever and then drop it because I don't wanna touch it. So Just making sure these things that we do, that we're doing something. And I know Alice is kind of a longer acronym, and we went to that with Portage County and Wood County all kind of at the same time as the area, so everybody knew, like, if I know I gotta respond and help out Rapids or Marshfield, I know exactly what's going on, they know exactly what's going on here. But just to put it in a quick layman's terms, run, hide, fight. It's pretty simple. We're going to hide right away if we can. I mean, if that's how we feel safest. If I can get out of here, I'm running. And when we take off, we're just not taking, we're trying to get to somewhere. I talked about other schools, but I talked to Brian about that, because the other schools are probably going to be locked down during this situation, so you're not going to get into them. You go to, community center, police department, Bethlehem Lutheran Church, just library, just anywhere. Let people know where you're at. You can call 911, say, this is who I am. I got my class, I'm here, we'll get you later, but just get out of here. And because some will be like, if I was teaching this at the middle school and I said, well, run to the high school, and they're like, well, the bad guy's shooting at that side of the building, I don't want to run that way. And I'm like, you're right, but if you have to take a really long trip to get to where you're going, it's okay. If you gotta go up to County G and down Double J and down, and make yourself fine, like, we'll get there. I don't care how long it takes, as long as we're safe. So in a quick nutshell, that's what Alice is: alert, lockdown, inform, counter, evacuate. It's just giving you decisions on what you feel comfortable doing, and each time may be different. But the simplest is lock down. That's what we've always taught. But to do a little bit different, barricade the door, have them spread. Because if I huddled all you up in that corner and I came in here with a BB gun or a paintball gun and just started shooting, it's easy to get you. But if you're spread out through the room, I gotta find the target, look at it, make that one, next one, next one, next one. So it's gonna take me longer to do that. We may save lives, or instead of just be huddled in the corner. And also try and hide, but to barricade too. And then if they do get in, counter with whatever we can. If it's throwing things, they might say, threw something at me, I'm out of here. The first time we did this, it brought it here. I did this training at the middle school, and I took my key and I opened one of the doors, and they had it kind of barricaded good, but enough to get my head in, and a kid threw a shoe at me and hit me in the head. I really can't yell at them because that's what I taught them. So I was okay with it, but just giving you some, it happens a ton, not necessarily schools, but this is stuff we can take out into our churches, our shopping centers, where these are also happening at, their life experiences and good stuff. But what we'll do is cruise over to where I know there's a barricade.
Those things you're gonna put down on windows, I hope they're not see-through.
No, they're not. They're black shades.
Well, we had black shades in Baumgart's room last year, but if you were on the outside, you could still see.
Well, these are like made by security companies, so I think they'd be smarter than that. Well, you could, think is a good word.
She has a question.
What do you want us to do with these?
I'm gonna tell you in a second. So here.
Okay, I work for other school districts
Yes.
and attended other drills, just like this one.
Mm-hmm.
And in another school district, we really emphasize that you break the windows and you get out. And they have tools by each window and buckets to protect you from glass, and that's their whole strategy is get out.
And that could be whatever you guys feel comfortable. That's why I don't want to limit you and hey, you need to get out, because
we're not saying that.
What if I mean, you can, but we don't have the tools to do it. You have to
But we have thought about having that tool available, but we're not gonna tell everybody to do that, because we don't know that's always the right. It might be safest to stay right there. And now you're crawling out the window and here comes the shooter out. It's.
One of the things that they haven't been successful in yet is a lot of these shooters are bringing their homemade bombs and placing them out around the school. So that's why there's some criticism right now that's newer to say, why go out to the unknown? Because you have no idea if there's somebody else out there, if they have their homemade pipe bombs out there. When I know if I can lock myself in here, but I want you guys to make that decision. And
there's a second point.
okay.
And we were told, if you did have a chance to get at the gun, don't.
Yeah, don't touch that gun.
Ever.
No.
Because the law, people coming in don't know who you are.
Oh, sure.
And they will shoot you, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So what we're trained to do is find the person with the gun, shoot them, we don't ask questions. So if you're holding the gun, It's all right for you, because they're probably gonna shoot you.
Yeah,
They did,
good point.
in Florida, they did like a mock training, where it was obviously like paintball, and they had the teacher give teachers gun, because that was the thing, well, we should give the teachers gun, and every teacher got shot in those scenarios, because they had a gun. What
We
do-
have to wrap up, because
Okay.
there's another group coming in here at 1. I apologize.
So, we're
You
gonna
have
go
one last
across, and I'll
point?
show you the barricade, we can have more questions over there. if you want.
Okay, so will you bring your stuff, the card, just bring that with you, the first instruction is get your name on it.